If, as O'Brien also noted in the pair's memorable Merry Exchange in Explorers, Julian was not an in-between kind of guy, then everyone grew to love him, and some maybe a bit more than others. As time went on, a testament to the writers and producers who were determined not to squander the immense talents and all-round likability of actor Alexander Siddig. Bashir was always already a gifted doctor too. He proved that on countless occasions, not least of which when on the battlefields of two wars, Klingon and Dominion. Even the OG spoiler of a genetic secret couldn't hamper the admiration of his friends and colleagues, nor could Luther Sloan crash the party for that long. Then there were those stuff of legend lunches with the former spy, tailor, tinker, let's just settle on Garrick. Here, my dear doctor, the lies really are just another way of telling the plain and simple truth. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Julian Bashir. Number 10. Siddig for Cisco? Not yet on a 26-hour day, Alexander Siddig, aka Siddig Il Fadil, already had less time to prepare for his audition. Then, as he related in the 50-year mission the next 25 years, the process was even more speedy. His agent had called with a short but effective message: "It's Wednesday night, off you go, it's Star Trek, you've got this scene, do a good job, see you later." From casting documents released via Trek Docs on Twitter, it would seem that Siddig's first audition for Star Trek was in fact on a Thursday morning, 9:30, 23rd of July at Twickenham Studios in London. Not knowing there was a new Trek show in the works, Siddig thought he was going up for a part in Star Trek The Next Generation, perhaps as Deanna Troy's brother. He also turned up to the audition sporting a black eye, having been punched in the face by an overzealous and overdrunk fan on the London Underground the night before. That didn't seem to deter producers, however. In fact, as further detailed in the making of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Rick Berman himself had sought out Siddig in the first place, after being impressed by his performance as King Faisal in A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia. Berman had initially wanted Siddig for the part of Commander Cisco, but upon learning that the actor was only in his mid-20s, appearing older in A Dangerous Man, Berman asked if he would audition for Dr. Bashir, at that point called Dr. Amorus instead. Number 9. Amorus. Julian Amorus. Julian was not quite the blank canvas Siddig auditioned for, as the actor put it on the Star Trek Deep Space Nine DVD extra crew dossier, Julian Bashir, but there were plenty of differences and similarities between the characterization of Amorus and the Bashir that made it to screen. On the 12th of June 1992 draft of Star Trek Deep Space Nine series Bible, Dr. Julian Amorus is, as per Bashir, a human, male, mid-20s, but unlike Bashir, Amorus already held the rank of Lieutenant Commander. Akin to Bashir once more, Amorus is described as naive with gung-ho expectations about his first assignment out of the academy, an assignment that he'd chosen over the cushy job he could have taken at Starfleet Medical. Quite unlike Bashir, however, Amorus was charming and cocky all at the same time. Or as writer Robert Hewitt-Wolf stated in the 50-year mission, he was a little more suave, with a little more in the way of personal skills, not as prone to shoving his foot completely into his mouth. In the show Bible, Amorus also liked to go to the phaser firing range to practice with O'Brien. Yeah, definitely not. Although then again, I suppose that is basically a high-tech version of darts. Amorus became Bashir after producers had met Siddig in LA, and it was the actor's interpretation of the character that then served to reshape Bashir's personality. As Siddig himself put it in the crew dossier DVD extra, "I could play him as someone who was genuinely freaked out by arriving in space, as I was genuinely freaked out by arriving in Los Angeles." Number 8. Ganglions in a twist. For anyone taking them, medical finals probably do feel like life and death, although Dr. Bashir was less embellishing, just a little all the same in his attempts to win over a Bajoran woman at the start of Q-less. His dramatic recounting might have culminated in the dizzying last-second inspiration of pericardial membrane, but it was a prior mix-up, pre-ganglionic fibre for post-ganglionic nerve, if I had a penny, that had cost Bashir the top graduating spot of valedictorian for second place salutatorian instead. In the very first drafts of Star Trek Deep Space Nine Bible, the then Dr. Julian Amorus is said to have graduated second in his class, but no particular reason is provided. By the time of the revised Bible of the 10th of September 1992, as given in the making of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Amorus had become Bashir, and pre-ganglionic, post-ganglionic explanation for missing out on that farewell speech at graduation had been added. There was always something eminently odd, however, about the mistake in the first place. Lethian Altovar put it best in Distant Voices when he said to Bashir, "But pre-ganglionic fibres and post-ganglionic nerves aren't anything alike. Any first-year student could tell them apart." According to the Deep Space Nine companion, that line was actually included by episode co-writer Robert Hewitt-Wolf as a nod to his wife Celeste. A pre-vet at the time, Celeste had pointed out that, for pre- and post-ganglionic fibres and nerves, no one in the medical field would make such a mistake. In Distant Voices, it was implied that Bashir deliberately got the question wrong merely because he didn't want the pressure of being valedictorian. Later, ganglions and nerve fibres would connect, recognisably this time, into something much bigger. Number 7. A Digium prime your neurons. The doctoring of Dr. Bashir's genome began life as a B-plot of a pitch by freelance writer Jimmy Diggs. It had Dr. Louis Zimmerman, and the new long-term medical hologram with Bashir as a template, but writers struggled at first to find the core element of the story, now the A of the episode, and not yet a Digium prime. As the Deep Space Nine companion goes on to note, there were still a lot of unanswered questions about Bashir's past, even by season 5. He had chosen triage over tennis, but was he good enough to go pro at the sport in the first place? Or did he drop the racket just to please his parents? Bashir had been very mysterious about them too. Finally, of course, there was the matter of those damn ganglions. The eugenics wars inspired eureka moment of an answer apparently came from then supervising producer and writer Ronald D. Moore, who, in a bolt of inspiration, asked, what if Bashir had been genetically engineered? The rest was the retroactive of accelerated critical neural pathway formation on the titular planet. In an early draft of Dr. Bashir, I presume, only O'Brien and Zimmerman would have found out the truth about Bashir, the former then blackmailing the latter to keep it quiet. Alexander Siddig opposed the idea, however, not wanting to act the rest of the series with the heavy burden of such a secret. Number 6. Shouldering the subtext. For a character like Garak, the only limit to subtext was the number of intricately woven lies the galaxy would permit. As for Bashir, you could always read his emotions like a book, just not one of Shoggoth's enigma tales. When the would-be Cardassian tailor and the thoughtful young man first met in past prologue, the in-between the lines was written all over their faces, and then carefully placed on the Doctor's shoulders. If we can read anything queer into Garak Bashir at all, it's because the actors rather boldly chose to play it that way. When asked by Ira Stephen Bear what Garak really thought of Bashir in What We Left Behind, Andrew Robinson gave the following reply. At first, he just wanted to have sex with him. That's absolutely clear. That's all he wanted from him. But then it got really complicated, especially when Garak's addiction and despair began to surface. He needed someone to share it with. In an interview all the way back in 2000, Robinson revealed that he had planned Garak not as a homosexual or heterosexual, but omnisexual. Much later in 2022, he told the Shuttlepod show that they, the producers, had no idea that's what he had in mind, but that the moment hands were put on shoulders, Alexander Siddig picked up the subtext straight away. In an interview for The Beat of April of this year, Siddig confirmed that he did indeed play Bashir's first meeting with Garak that way, stating, I became visibly flustered. That was entirely my choice, it wasn't written into the script, so I set off in that direction from the get-go. In the same interview, Siddig also noted that he tries to infuse little implied homosexuality into most of his written as straight characters, probably, he quotes, because I'm not quite straight myself, and that's probably perfect. Number 5. Case of Loving You. The Garashir ship had sailed long before anyone could climb aboard. There was more chance of Quark donating his entire estate to charity than there was any real romantic or sexual pairing between Garak and Bashir during the run of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Producer Ira Stephen Bear might well have claimed in What We Left Behind that after The Wire, we should have had Garak come out to Bashir as a gay Cardassian and then go from there with the relationship, but the should in that sentence is doing all the heavy lifting, and Bear's later probably not is decidedly the operative where the studio was concerned. Bashir was pretty unlucky in love throughout most of the series. Lita stayed around for the longest, but whatever medical ethics had to say about Serena and Melora, moreover, was over in an episode. There was one person, one entity, towards whom Bashir made every effort at an overture, but as Alexander Siddig put it in What We Left Behind, Julian Bashir was too immature. I was punching above my weight when I was on the same stage with Terry Farrell. Jadzia had no need for Bashir. With Jadzia's untimely death and the arrival of new Dax host Ezri, things changed. As Siddig concluded, Ezri seemed to need Bashir as much as Bashir needed her. Number 4. Bullseye bromance. Much like a lot of the audience, Miles O'Brien couldn't bear to be around Bashir at first. In The Storyteller, the Chief had to be practically ordered to sit in the same shuttle as the Doctor. It was then the multitude of life and death, mostly death, situations thrust upon them which solidified, and at times tested, the duo's most unique, most enduring relationship. The bromance might never have begun, however. According to producer Ira Stephen Bear in the 50-year mission, the next 25 years, the studio returned with all kinds of suggestions after season 1, one of which was that they put rockets on the station so it could go off and have adventures, and another was that they say goodbye to Bashir. Whilst Bear never knew the studio's exact reasoning, he notes that, I just felt that they felt the character was an irritant in some way, which I guess is another way of saying he got on O'Brien's nerves. Everyone was unanimous in refusing both ideas, the space station was no, and getting rid of Bashir was no, concluded Bear. It was O'Brien's near demise in Armageddon Game, an episode originally slated to feature Dax over the Chief, that truly marked the beginnings of the bond that could never be broken between the two men. Alexander Siddig regularly cites the episode as a pivotal moment for the pair, the crux of the relationship, as he put it in crew dossier Julian Bashir. Of course, Bashir and O'Brien went on to be known for their legions of holosuite adventures, but they also notably played darts, a game introduced for them in Profit Motive. According to Robert Hewitt Wolf in the DVD extra crew dossier Miles O'Brien, the pair could have ended up playing pool instead, only writers found out that they wanted to do that over on Star Trek Voyager. Number 3. Is Kukalaka helping? If the character of Dr. Bashir wasn't well received at the beginning, then it was, in part, because he was written in that unamiable corner. As Alexander Siddig stated in the making of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, there was a definite proviso from the production office to make Bashir naive and arrogant. Far from avoiding such a challenge, however, Siddig embraced it, deciding to play Bashir at the start as completely imperfect in almost every aspect. Back when the cost of complaining was the effort of a letter, the studio received hundreds of them in disapproval of Bashir's personality. Some of the press at the time certainly didn't seem to disagree. One article in the Philadelphia Daily News from December 1993 simply went with the title, "Bashir's a pain, but actor loves him." In crew dossier Julian Bashir, Ira Stephen Bear acknowledged the initial fan resistance to the too wet behind the ears Bashir, but noted the determination to change perceptions. "We were going to make this character great because Sid is a great actor," Bear concluded. In a 2023 interview with the Clone Star podcast, Siddig credited the episode Our Man Bashir for changing fans' minds, fans who had openly vilified Bashir only the week before. Whether or not Kukalaka, Dr. Bashir's first patient and teddy bear, made Julian appear like more of a grown-up is another matter, but it did help bring him down to earth, or Bajor, and provided for some excellent comedy in the cards. Number 2. Now, who wants sandwiches? Yes, he killed everyone on the Yukon and tried to create a supernova that would have destroyed the entire Bajoran star system, DS9 and the fleet along with it, but at least the changeling masquerading as Bashir had otherwise good manners to bring snacks to his work-weary colleagues. "A gentleman and a scholar," in O'Brien's words, none the wiser that his best friend had been replaced by a polymorphic goo. No offence, Odo. It was around the point of the sandwiches in Purgatory's Shadow that we, the audience, found out that Bashir had been in a Dominion internment centre on an asteroid somewhere in the Gamma Quadrant since at least before the uniform change. In a manner similar to Bashir's genetic status, the changeling big reveal wasn't planned much, if at all, in advance. As Robert Hewitt Wolf stated in the DS9 Companion, "We thought, okay, we've got prisoners of the Dominion, but we need a surprise. Something we don't expect. And suddenly we learn that Bashir's a prisoner too. He's been replaced on the station." Naturally, the news came as quite the surprise to Alexander Siddig, who too noted in the DS9 Companion, "Apparently I'd been a changeling for the previous 3 or 4 shows, but I didn't know until the last minute. What a shock." For reference, see the look on changeling Bashir's face when the Defiant swoops in By Inferno's light. Number 1. Buttered scones and tea. I doubt that it's the pronunciation, which Bashir gets wrong, that was part of the test for Section 31, and in any case, in Inquisition, the Doctor got a plate full of gach in place of his order of hot buttered scones, moba jam and red leaf tea. Whilst the holographic Worf was presumably tucking in, Sloane and company continued the interrogation turned recruitment pitch. Although basically ordered by Captain Cisco to play along next time, Bashir never really did get the chance to act out his holosuite spy fantasy in the real world. Bashir did remain absolute in his admonition of the clandestine organisation and paragraph of the Starfleet Charter, nonetheless, even if he and O'Brien would later go to some extreme lengths to try and get to some of Section 31's secrets. In the hypothetical of the Season 8 opener, devised and discussed by former DS9 writers and producers in What We Left Behind, Bashir was a member of Section 31 by 2395, if not running the goddamn thing, at least to Robert Hewitt Wolf's mind. A common theme, perhaps, in Alone Together, a DS9 companion, set about 25 years after the end of the Dominion War, Bashir was also coordinating the activities of Section 31. He's probably settled some pretty good scone debates too. And that's everything for our list today, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jack Kiley, for writing the article on which this is based. Please follow us on all the various socials. You can grab us at TrekCulture. You can also grab myself at Sean Ferrick as well. Until I see you again, make sure that you live long and prosper. You are great. You are cool. Give yourself a hug from me, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much.